Most residences built today don't have professional lighting designers involved. The architect or the electrician or the builder or somebody will do it. It's not malice. Nobody's like, it doesn't matter, I don't care about that. They literally think or believe or feel, well, it's fine like that. As an industry, we're learning quickly, and there is absolutely people like ourselves that do care. There is more flexibility and there is more options, but it is a technical exercise. I guess one thing I definitely want to make clear is we're not taking this lightly. To provide the right thing and control it the right way. And we don't want to be confrontational or being offensive to the lighting designer who may have chosen things. If you go from average, nothing design lighting to well-designed, amazingly high-performance, easy-to-operate lighting, that's a massive experience change in somebody's life every single day. The goal is actually to consolidate and coordinate and automate a seamless, intuitive, logical, beautiful experience.
Welcome to the LytePOD, built by LytePOD, the #1 podcast for the people, process, and product of design, all with a little love for light along the way. I'm your host, Sam Koerbel, and today we welcome an incredibly well-versed, experienced business owner and integrator, Richard Millson, to the podcast. This episode is brought to you by LytePalooza, a conference dedicated to educating and empowering custom home integrators across North America, providing training and certification programs along with a full series of product demonstrations and premier networking events. LytePalooza is the #1 place for dealers nationwide to gather and learn. As technology specialists learn how to adopt lighting as a category, this annual event is leading the way, bringing an industry together. LytePalooza ignites opportunity and enables integrators to thrive in the expanding world of architectural lighting. Visit LytePalooza.com to learn more. Are you ready? Let's dive into it with Richard.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
I want to claw back your world and your life a little bit in terms of what you have come to know as it relates to creating success, as it relates to understanding ultimately how to satisfy a client's needs.
As much as everything we do is related to technology, it's all about people. It's all about experience. But I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding about what happens around technology in houses. It seems to, at least historically, somewhat has been seen as an afterthought, or like, oh yeah, we should add some of that tech stuff. And actually, if it's done properly, it's considered early and it's foundational to their experience in the house. So in our own company, we bring things in and we actually build them out on the test bench and we try them and program them and use them. And sometimes we do that in our own homes before we'll ever put it in somebody's house. And I would say that this evolution of lighting, and just to be clear, we've done lighting control for a very long time, 25 years. But we've always been sort of at the mercy of what others have given us in terms of the fixtures and, scene zones, et cetera, the layout. Here's your drawings, now control that. And what's happened more recently in the last few years is that we've moved up the food chain, if you will, so that we can become involved in which fixtures are being specified. And the thing is, one thing I do want to make clear is that has nothing to do with trying to own more of the project or control it or take anything away from anybody. It's actually a very fundamental control thing. What I mean by that is not control of the situation, but control of the actual lighting fixtures. There's so much technology, especially, and this is just absolutely amplified so much and changed so much with the advent and ubiquity of LED. So we have to be aware of those things and understand what dims, what doesn't dim properly, 0 to 10, different kinds of control and all that, and how that all works. Because in a lot of our projects, actually, we've seen where we'll get a bill of equipment or bill of materials, and you're looking at the fixtures and it says, dim to 1%. And well, that fixture doesn't dim to 1%. It's not even available in that. Or it'll say 2700 Kelvin and you go, well, it's not available, or whatever the situation is. So part of it is being able to, or now we're sort of tasked with taking a role of explaining that, and we don't want to be confrontational or being offensive to the lighting designer who may have chosen things. Typically, they choose things based on how the item looks, obviously with sconces and pendants and chandeliers and all that kind of thing. But with downlights or linear or the things that we're doing now, a lot of the end result, we get back to the original, the experience of that, is all about understanding and planning properly all the technical side of things, how it gets controlled, how it gets installed, making sure that, that one fixture over there, well, that one that was chosen, or those two sconces, let's say, they don't dim like everything else, or when they do dim, they're not the same color and they kind of stand out on the wall. And like being aware of all that and sharing that sort of upstream, if you will, that's something that we really have been developing a lot. And we didn't think about that 5, 6, 7 years ago. There wasn't even, well, whatever they give us, we'll try and do our best to control it. And there's a lot of work involved in that oftentimes we never got paid for, that we had to figure out all the problems later. We're just trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
It's interesting to hear you speak about you controlled whatever showed up or whatever was given to you. When you speak to the fact that LED changed things, did you have to care or did you want to care about the light fixtures themselves?
Well, personally, I've always cared, but from a technical standpoint, there was no choice. You have to know about this and you have to understand it or you can't control it. It's simply, this is an assumption on my part because I'm not a lighting designer in terms of people that do this professionally. That's all they do. We do lighting design for homes and we have a certain skill set around that, but we certainly don't claim to be on a par with a professional lighting designer, and that's what they do. They're far more trained than ours. We've just come at this in the last few years, and to your point, we've had to learn about it because you need to know about color temperature and beam spread and how to light artwork properly and how to do counters and shelves and under cabinet and all that sort of thing. What is ambient, what is task, etc. And if you don't understand that, then you don't know what the experience is going to be at the end, and you don't know how to create that experience for the client. And at the ultimate sort of end of the road, if you take all the design decisions out of it from our standpoint, the technology is, frankly, and this might sound strange coming from me, but it's irrelevant and it's not the point, and it never should be the point. I would say that, I don't want to, digress too much here, but I would say that from an integrator standpoint, integrators are human beings. And so you have people that love the technology and think it's really cool, so they got into this. And you have people that have been doing it a long time. They've learned what doesn't work. They understand how to engage with their clients. They understand what they're trying to achieve. And then I would say, and of course there's a spectrum of all this, but myself, I'm really focused on and love design because I love design. If I wasn't doing this, I might have been an architect or a furniture designer or some other kind of design professional. So when we get something from a design person, regardless if it's architect, interior design, lighting designer, landscape designer, whatever, I actually care about the effort that was put into that. I care about their thought process, what they're trying to achieve. And I look at the technology as being able to enable that, not clash with it. I don't know that we've ever said to a designer, well, you can't do that. It doesn't work that way. We always want to explore, okay, so I see what you want to do there. Here's why that might not work technically the way you think. But here's another thing we could do that achieve, et cetera. You just work together. I think that has become amplified with lighting. It's really, not to get to on the designer side, but what surface in a home, what object in a home isn't affected or impacted greatly by lighting? It's the entire thing. You can have the best architecture, interior design, colors, fabrics, surfaces. If you don't light it properly, I mentioned that house, which I won't mention by name, but we had a recent home. We're talking a $30 million home. This is a very, very significant residence, years to build, et cetera. They have a significant artwork collection. Well, when you go in, the paintings, some of them are half in darkness and half in light. And it's a concrete pour. You're not changing it. Most residences built today, residential, don't have professional lighting designers involved. The architect or the electrician or the builder or somebody will do it. And again, I want to repeat, it's not malice. Nobody's like, it doesn't matter. I don't care about that. They literally think or believe or feel, well, it's fine like that. It's not that they know it could be better, but they're going to ignore that. No, they don't know that it could be better or it's required. The old term, 4 cans in a fan, well, what's wrong with that? Well, many things, actually. And where do I start? But from our point of view, it's not, and I don't know that everybody always agrees with this, but our job is not to sell a bunch of stuff. It's like to try and find out what you're trying to achieve. And we've got a toolbox of stuff, and we can help you achieve that. And in my personal opinion, we should do that in the least invasive way in terms of our impact on the design intent. Like, I don't like putting big touch panels on walls. Just put it around the corner. Like, why is it going to interfere with the artwork? That if that space is for art, it shouldn't also have a keypad or something. Where can we put it? And they're often surprised to hear me say that, but well, how would I want to live? I want that beautiful piece of artwork perfectly lit. I don't want to see that other thing over there on the wall. And everybody has personal opinions, but as an industry, we're learning quickly, and there is absolutely people like ourselves that do care. If we understand better what they do and they understand better what we do, it's not a competition, it's not a fight. It's actually, the more we know about and respect what each other does, and the requirement for it, I think the better result could be for the end customer, which is actually what the goal is, I think.
You mentioned earlier that from the world you come from, a lot of residential projects don't have a lighting designer on it. There's a reason that they don't have a lighting designer on it. I'm not exactly sure what that reason is. You as an integrator have a vested interest in things not being wrong.
Absolutely.
You want it to be right in terms of everything working. And that to me seems to be really actually the impetus of why you said, well, we have to do this.
Yeah. Remember that I said we've been doing lighting control for 25, almost 30 years. For 20 of those years or more, it worked fine. And the reason it worked fine is because everything's incandescent and it all dims perfectly and it all goes down to below 1%, and it's all has a lovely warm dim curve to it, and it looks great. As long as you place the things properly and there's lamps and blah, 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 it looks great. Well, with LED, everything changed. All those elements became much more technical. What type of chip they were using, what type of enclosure, the driver, all that sort of thing. And if you think about it, all of a sudden there was a lot more to know. But you do need to know if it's phase adaptive, if it's 0 to 10, how are you controlling it? What's the distance of the driver to the fixture? And these are typically things, it's like asking, someone who designs a bathroom and they select plumbing fixtures. They don't know how the pipes get hooked up or what size it is or how much water it uses. They don't need to know that. But this is so if someone who picks or selects a nice looking fixture for a space, it's logical for them to think, well, my work is done here. I chose a thing, now the electrician puts it in. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot more to it. And technology is changing quickly. And one of the things fundamentally impacting this from the control side is this movement away from you used to have what we call wall box control. There's a dimmer switch on the wall. And if you've got a lot of lights, you've got a lot of dimmers and switches. Well, visually, that's obviously not appealing. So the larger control companies started doing centralized systems. So you put everything in a panel downstairs or somewhere, and you have a simple, lovely keypad on the wall, and it controls all lights. That's great. The problem with that is that it takes up a lot of room downstairs, and there's a lot of heat and a lot of power, etc. With LED, now the intelligence is moving into the fixture itself. And this is a huge fundamental change. So you need to understand, it's easier to wire from an electrical standpoint. And the beauty from a control standpoint, or I really should say from a design standpoint, is you don't have to decide now that those 4 lights over there by that wall are going to do this. And so we'll wire those together and they go back either downstairs or to the wall box. And those 2 are going to do this and those 3 are in the lamps on the floor. You can literally just wire it all up and then say, all right, I've got my laptop. What would you like to do? Oh, I need those 2 to go up and down with that one. And this extends to color changing. This extends to lots of things. And that flexibility, again, is actually, in my opinion, should be embraced by the design community because it means you don't have to decide now. We can change it later without tearing the ceiling apart and rewiring things or running new switches and that sort of thing. So there is more flexibility and there is more options, but it is a technical exercise. So that's kind of why, obviously it sounds self-serving, but I would think the design community would look at us not as somebody that, or as a group of people that don't understand them or want to compete with them or cause them problems, or it's more like, all right, here's what I want to achieve. You guys know all that stuff. I don't want to learn all that. And why should I? We've always had to control it, and we've always been at the mercy, and it's gotten worse in this condensed period over LED. But now that's actually the impetus for us starting to want to select fixtures. It's not about taking dollars or business away from anybody. It's like, well, if I choose the fixture and I know that's 0 to 10 and I know that that's being done this way, then I can design it, I can control it, I can do exactly what the customer wants, I can create the exact end experience that's required, that sort of thing. I think it's quite a leap, and I think it's unreasonable that our entire industry would all of a sudden, with 20,000 integrators or whatever, we're all going to become lighting designers. Like, that's not going to happen, and I don't think, honestly, most of them, the great majority, don't want that to happen. What they want is a better relationship with the actual designers.
Well, there's two reasons why it needs to happen, right? The first reason is, from a technical standpoint, the systems are complex.
Yeah.
So someone needs to design that system. But someone also needs to, or can, I should say, understand how light impacts a space and affects that outcome. What do you feel like is the way, or the aha moment where you taking all of that control and then getting people stoked on lighting?
So we need to educate them about what's possible in distributed music, or what's possible in a home cinema or video distribution or security or CCTV or whatever. And really, we just haven't had that conversation historically about what's possible with lighting. So to your point, with new fixtures and LED technology, it really, the end result of that is smaller apertures. You can light things that you weren't able to previously, certainly for a fraction of the cost of what it would have taken, the customization and enclosure, and it's got to be serviceable on it. No, you just take this little lipstick thing and you can get a 1-inch aperture, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, you didn't think about how that affects a sculpture or a stairwell or, a niche, or you can do things that you could never do before. And here's what I find so interesting is very rarely do you get anyone who says, I don't care about that. Of course they do, because as animals, for hundreds of thousands of years, whatever, we've responded to light. It affects us deeply. And so in the built environment, when you're inside the house, I didn't know it could look like this. We had a dinner party. We obviously have done some lighting design and control and things in my own home. And we had a dinner party, and one of the guests, just out of the blue, said one time, he's looking around. My wife's a painter, so she does a lot of her own artwork. And so I take some care to make sure that pops on the wall and looks really good. And she's lovely and quite good at it. But it's our environment, it's our home. And he's looking around and he's going, I've tried to figure out why it's always so comfortable in here and why it's so relaxing and so delightful to be in this space. And he goes, this is a guy, he's an engineer, but he's retired, and he knows nothing about lighting or frankly any of that stuff. And he just goes, it's the lighting. And I took that as a big compliment, but I found it very interesting because he was looking at it from an analytical engineering mind, like, what is it different in here? And he's looking around trying to figure it out. And then he settled on the lighting. And it's, if you saw a picture of the space, the lighting is like exactly what he described, is intentionally done to create a warm environment. It's welcoming, it's lovely to be in. Obviously, if you need to clean the counter, you can hit a button and change that environment. But that's what we're trying to achieve. And we're able to do that because of exactly what you said. I can light shelves or light under counters or toe kicks or above cabinets or whatever, way less expensively, way more reliably, and way more easily than I could ever do that before. So to your point, just show them what's possible. Because today I don't think that most people building a house, they are not shown. Many dealers are now putting in sort of mini lighting showrooms, but they're not about fixtures. They don't show off decoratives. They're actually showing color, temperature, beam spread. Here's what linear looks like. And they're getting a lot of traction around that because no one else has done that traditionally. They just haven't seen it. And as soon as they see it, they go, well, I want that. And so that opens the door for us to say, all right, well, here are the three choices. And this is, what it really does is it allows us to control it properly. It's a dance of the design and the technical side of things, right?
When you think about supplying the product so that you guys can do the best job to create that experience for the end user, which includes the design intent, how do you approach trying to understand the intent behind lighting design?
It depends how it comes to us. We will, like most people that operate at our level, we have relationships with interior designers, architects, builders, that sort of thing. So they will bring us into the meeting when they feel it's appropriate. And from our point of view, I can get this plug in, I hope, the earlier the better. We're ready for drywall. Come and talk to us about, you need to talk to us, So we're brought into these meetings, and more recently it's become, hey, can you share with the client, and maybe it's the builder, the architect saying this, because they're not threatened by us. I have no idea whether this is appropriate for this podcast or whatever, but there's different paths to market for those fixtures. And I'll just state here, we're not about, we're going to make a lot more money by selling these fixtures too. That's actually not the goal. We often will provide the fixtures to the electrician, who then sells them to the project as he normally would. We have no issue with that. The goal is to provide the right thing and control it the right way. But showing them that and explaining the difference, the average person on the street doesn't know anything about correlated color temperature. They don't know anything about dimming curves or, this obviously circadian and that type of thing is really a hot button right now and has been for some time. I found it really interesting more recently to learn that even that is changing. So originally when we started hearing about this, all the buzz was about, well, you know how thousands of years ago, we all sat around a campfire, and then as the sun rises and it goes to the middle of the sky and it changes and becomes more blue and temperature rises, and then it comes down in the evening and now it's a warm glow again, blah, blah, blah. And the emphasis was on color temperature, right? And the latest research is actually, you can do circadian even without tunable and without changing the color temperature. The number one thing is about the intensity and the time of day and the duration. That's just new learning. And what the end result of that is, you actually can do what the client needs and wants and may prefer without having to, well, if you want to do that, then you have to spend all this money to do this other stuff. You can, and that's lovely, and some people want color and that sort of thing for other reasons, but you can actually deliver something now from a scientific standpoint that doesn't have to have that. Well, that's just education. That's just learning. So, we attend things like this conference, LytePOD. We take online courses. There's a lot of, one of the industry associations we belong to, HTSA, they have offered historically over the last several years a lot of lighting training, like a lot, for integrators specifically. And so they reach out to lighting designers, lighting professionals, architects, even other people, fixture manufacturers, to provide that training. I guess one thing I definitely want to make clear is we're not taking this lightly. It's not like, well, I'll spend an afternoon and learn a couple things and now I'm a lighting. We realize clearly that is not the case. This is a big deal, and if you're going to execute properly, you better learn what you're talking about.
We've talked a lot about the value of lighting. We've talked a lot about the value of good design and how that is a component of what creates success for an integrator. At the end of the day, there's a lot of work that goes in literally and figuratively behind the scenes. Most of what you guys do is paid for and never seen, but lighting is. But the one other thing that's seen is the control point. Mm-hmm. And that's that user experience. Talk to me just a little bit more about how you approach understanding the needs of the client and creating the right user interface and user experience.
So I think that's actually kind of a very important thing for people to understand. And just if I can break it down a little bit, all of these things should be thought of and are, in fact, technically subsystems. So your security system is a subsystem, the lighting control system, the music system, etc. What happens is the lower market, you have different apps or control methods per system. And as you move up market, the idea or the desire, the goal is to bring those things together, because a person of means who's busy and they have kids and they're doing things, I want all these lovely things in my home, but I certainly don't want to pull out my phone and open an app to do something with the doorbell and then open another app to play some music and then open another. Like, that's acceptable if you're in a college dorm or, you got a 1-bedroom apartment or something, and you only got a couple things. Well, if you're dealing with a 10 or 15,000 square foot house, or even a 3,000 square foot house, and you have multiple disciplines or systems, subsystems, the goal is actually to consolidate and coordinate and automate those things. The goal is actually to create a seamless, intuitive, logical, beautiful experience. So to your point and your question about the interface, remember that I've been doing this a very long time, so there was no such thing as an iPad or an iPhone or any of this stuff way back in the day. So you had to have buttons or switches, or then Crestron and AMX originally and others came out with touch panels where they're very expensive and they're very small and they're low resolution and they weren't that bright. But they did an okay job of pulling together those different subsystems into a single control point. I don't have to go over there to do the lights and over there to do the shades and over there to do the music and it's all in one place. Well, I don't want 16 keypads, so that was one way of doing it. Along comes iPhone, iPad, much cheaper and more high resolution control points like touch panels. And it comes down to two different things. And I would say that, Apple and Steve Jobs and everything, they kind of taught the world about what good design was and the importance of good design and the fact that people would pay for good design. Well, what they really are paying for is this seamless, intuitive, natural interface. That is an enormously difficult thing to do well. As anybody who's ever used a parking meter or, a coffee machine, like an interface is the experience. So real care needs to be taken on that. The value of the ecosystem for Apple is they built this unified interface. Oh, you can have an app on there. You can write an app as long as it looks like this, as long as the buttons look like this, and as long as it works like this. And actually, that was really good of them to do that because it caused this ecosystem that everybody could play in. Well, you've got different control companies, and I still feel it's kind of an interesting thing. You've got these sort of silos, this company does this company does this company does this, but they don't necessarily, I can't use that touch panel with that company's keypad, with this company's software. It's somewhat siloed. When we're doing these sort of systems in houses, we care about, with regard to the control points, where should they logically be located? What should they include? Well, just put everything on every one of them. No, I don't need to do everything from the bathroom upstairs. So I only want, even if the control point looks the same, I only want certain information on it because that's easier. And you have to think about, does this person, are they a guest in the home? Is it a child? Is it the adult? Are they the homeowner? Are they the cleaning staff? What's going on here? What are you trying to control? Do they speak English? Maybe they only use this house 2 weeks a year, and the rest of the time they're going to let their guests or family use it, and they show up. Is it so intuitive that you should be able to walk up to it and use it in a clean, understandable way with no training? That is, and that should be the goal. It certainly is for us. But the average integrator is not well trained in that. So what's now happened is it's evolved to where certain companies say, well, here's our control system, and we've decided that this is what the interface looks like. That's both negative and positive. It's positive because, generally speaking, they're reasonably attractive and somewhat well designed and that sort of thing. We personally have not gone in that direction because we spent so much time building the interface that we care about and that we've proven over time works really, really well. It's just a different approach. But the only thing I would finish with is our goal is not to put more junk on the walls. Like, that's not the goal. I don't say, well, we'll just use a 6-button keypad. We'll put one everywhere. Do you need 6 buttons everywhere? Do you need those 6 choices? I've been in many meetings where people are trying to think of something else to put on button number 5. And I'm going, maybe we could make it a 4-button or a 3-button or a 2-button and simplify it and make it easy to understand instead of smaller type, more buttons. Which one am I hitting here? Well, that's just the equivalent of 6-gang box. And you're going, what does this switch do? What does this switch do? You should not have that be the experience.
The experience of intentionality, which I feel like is a word that's been used several times in this conversation. The experience of not only making sure that intentionality exists, but exists in the sense that whomever is going to live with it or operate or use it doesn't have to be trained on it, doesn't have to understand anything overly complicated. that is fundamentally what great lighting is too, right? I mean,
100%.
What are some things you've seen in just like the last 24 months on a project by project basis where you've smiled, you've gone, oh, hell yeah. Look, we figured that one out.
Well, as an industry, it's pretty easy to point to, specifically with regard to lighting, and that is this. I mentioned that the control aspect is moving. It was originally in the wall, and then it went to centralized panel, and now it's moving in the fixture. Well, what that does is it takes the requirement for design decisions and moves them from the beginning of the project to essentially whenever is convenient for anybody to change anything in the future. And what I mean by that is, as long as you can't take 6 downlights and put them in a 3-foot circle in the middle of the room and go, well, we're done. You do have to think about, well, we're going to have artwork there or task-escalating lamps or whatever you're trying to achieve. But there are some pretty reasonable standards around that. But my point is that you can now change things. If I said this at the highest level, you can make decisions and change things later that you couldn't do previously. And that's a big deal in terms of designing something. Maybe you've decided that there's a single light outside the back door that for whatever reason, your son came home from college and now you want to turn that on at midnight and have it go off at 4 a.m. Oh, but it's tied to all the other lights on the outside of the house in one big string, and now we have to have all the lights. No, I can just address that one light. Even if they're wired together electrically, same actual electrical wire, and there's 60 of them on a thing, which you can do now with the LED because they're so low wattage, I can control and group and change those individually. Well, that's easy for the electrician, it's easy for the architect, it's easy for the builder, it's easy for the designer, because we don't know what artwork's going to go there, but we know there's going to be some artwork. Well, how big is it? I don't know. We can change the fixture because of the modularity of it, and we can change the brightness. Oh, I want those 2 paintings to come on together. We can do that. Oh, I just want this one. We can do that. And before it would be, well, you need to make that decision now before the house is built so we can wire it properly. That's a big evolution of the design process in terms of the options that it gives us going down the road. And I can control that from my phone, an iPad, across the planet, a keypad. Yes, 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 and yes. What would you like to do? Instead of, well, no, make up your mind now so we can program it that way and wire it that way. And if you want to change it, we're going to get a guy and put him in a van with a laptop and he's going to, all that goes away. Those are big, big evolutions on the lighting side that I would say they directly impact both the design side and the technical side and allow for choice in the future.
That's the flexibility of it, but where do you see controls still being difficult from the standpoint of you've got to get certain things right on the front end?
Well, believe it or not, it's interesting because I don't see that aspect becoming more difficult. I actually see it becoming easier. And I also I see a lot more choice happening. What I mean by that is there are now several companies, all they do, their entire business model, every product in the catalog is a keypad. That's all they make. They don't make all the control. Normally, a control system company will also make keypad for lighting or audio, video, etc. But these companies say, no, we make the keypad, and it's made out of, stone or glass or metal, or what color would you like it? Would you like it in polished brass? Do you want it to be old school with click, click switches? Do you want it to be soft touch? Do you want it to be backlit? And the answer is, yeah, we can do all that. And they're typically more expensive. But what I'm saying is you have this, it's like you can buy a Honda Civic or a Ferrari, and there's lots of things in between. Well, now you can get a relatively inexpensive plastic keypad with some buttons on it, or you can get this really high-end piece of wall jewelry, if you will. And that just gives more choice. So when you say, does it pose any problems for the integrator or the design community with regard to control points? Actually, I see the opposite happening. The other thing that used to be is that all those control points used to be dedicated, not just in the number of wires, but the type of wire and the control protocol and all that kind of stuff. Now, many of them are wireless. As long as I got some power somewhere there, which is pretty easy to get to, even if you have to slightly repair the wall or do whatever, come from the other side or down from the top, I can make it a wireless keypad and now control it. So, there used to be a switch there. Well, take the switch out, I have power there, and I can put a keypad or a control point or an interface of some type that can do lots of different things. And that actually gives you more flexibility. It's not less. There's technology is making more options possible than used to be, for sure, for control points.
Giving people what they want is certainly the name of the game when you look at a residential environment.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you see lighting 10 years from now in the custom integration channel?
You're going to see the same thing that has occurred in all other industries historically, which is consolidation. It's been happening. It's still happening. It's starting to accelerate. Historically and traditionally, our industry's kind of been behind in that. So you get a bunch of small silo companies. There are no, forgive the term, but 800-pound gorillas in our space. The largest companies that do anything to do with what we do are, sub $2 billion in sales. And that sounds like a lot of money, but the next one down is 150 million and the next one down is 38 million. It really is not, well, here's these 6 companies. Like there used to be 1,100 car companies at one point in North America. And then Henry Ford came along and now whatever, we got 4 or 5. Like it's consolidation. So I can see with technology, especially in the lighting space, the way that's happening, there will be some leaders that pull out ahead and just sort of, I won't mention any names because this isn't an ad for anybody, but there are people that are looking to this space and actually instead of seeing it as an antagonistic sort of wire, they're looking at what do these guys actually need? How do we make their lives easier? How can we actually look at the landscape and create products that are easy for the integrator to use, the electrician to use, the designer to use, the homeowner to use in the end? And they are moving in that direction. Well, I can see them evolving to a place of prominence, let's put it that way. The one thing, if I have a chance to dispel this myth, this whole idea about, well, everything's wireless. So, what do I need to run wires for? Okay, well, first of all, everything's not wireless. And second of all, there are issues around wireless with the bandwidth required and the sort of space available for different frequencies. It's getting more and more hard to find that open channel for direct and clear communication. That's a pretty broad way of putting it. But in general, if you can run a wire, you want to run a wire. That's still, even in 2025 today, that's still how we approach a project. Lots of things can be done wireless, say Wi-Fi throughout the house and communication. Obviously, we do all that. But if I have a keypad on the wall and I have a choice of whether I just bring power to it and make it wireless or I can run a control wire to it, I typically will probably do that. That may change in the future. I mean, I can't predict what wireless protocols are going to happen in the next 30 years or whatever. Maybe
but there seems like a pretty big opportunity there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, especially in this channel. It is very fragmented with lots and lots and lots of players. And I see that the people who are paying attention to the needs of the ecosystem, I mean the designer, the builder, the integrator, all the way through, and are answering those things and building products that solve those problems, they're going to ascend. They're going to become more prominent and take more market share. Not through fancy marketing, it's just they building things that actually work that people need. And I think that's where the focus should be for sure.
Building things that actually work that people need.
Speakers are speakers, amplifiers are amplifiers, and TVs are TVs, and they change a little bit here and there, but the lighting aspect of what we do really has the most opportunity for evolution and the most opportunity for advancement in terms of how we use it, and the fact that we end up essentially creating better experiences for our clients. If I sell somebody a bigger TV, it's nice, still a TV on the wall, it's 4K, whatever. But if you go from average, nothing design lighting to well-designed, amazingly high performance, easy to operate lighting, that's a massive experience change in somebody's life every single day.
Lighting inherently is something that comes into design at an earlier point in the project than historically maybe the other equipment or services that integrators have done. What does that do for this trade, for this industry?
It's game changing because for 30 years we have been asking, please get us involved earlier. And essentially the stakeholders in the project are, we can just call that guy later. I mean, we've literally had people say to us on the phone, we'll call you just before drywall. And it's like, you don't understand. And this is nothing to do with lighting. We need to run wires. We need to understand where they want music. Do you entertain? Do you travel? Is there going to be staff in the home? Et cetera. All these questions we have to ask. And this now is a reason to get involved earlier because they know that the lighting has to be chosen. And so if they're talking to us about lighting, it allows us to get involved and start talking about all of the disciplines earlier. And honestly, I've been in meetings where people go, oh, that's a good point. I never would have thought you had to figure that out now, but you do. It's like, yeah, we do. And I don't know, I can't remember if that particular meeting was there because of lighting or not, but definitely being able to speak about lighting and talk to them about lighting. Have you considered your lighting plan? Do you know it's possible? That's a place where you can get in the project earlier, but we would use that, and it's very beneficial to our industry to talk about all the other things we do at the same time. And it's fun, and it's interesting, and it's a new thing to learn, and it has high impact on people's lives, and we like the technology aspect of it, and and it means we control it easier, and so I don't see any bad part of it. We like it a lot.
Well, I think that there's a pretty big community of people who love lighting, who maybe haven't always paid attention to it in the way that a custom integrator does, and they love it too. A lot of love for light is always a good thing, especially if you're talking to Sam, the guy who dies on the cross and loves lighting and cheers for it all day long. Richard, thanks so much.
It's been my pleasure, Sam. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. See ya.
Thanks.